Oh, hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the ancient scriptures and prophecies in regards of what is going on right now in the world. Currently, so many individuals and astrologers are discussing a possible World War III, which I don't think it is, but we are already living in the World War III, and not in the way we think that should be with weapons, actually, but there are many countries or lands, nations involved worldwide in some kind of chaotic energy. So we're going to talk about these ancient scriptures, Gog and Magog, and Kali Yuga cycle, etc. So Gog and Magog. What is Gog and Magog? For those who don't know Hebrew, Kabbalistic mystic scriptures, okay, and it's a Hebrew word. It's for a Hebrew prophecy, as many other historical prophecies in history that are known to come from ancient scriptures, from the, for example, Vedic Hindu writings, the Hebrew and Aramaic, the Malaysian, the Babylonian, the Persian, the Egyptian, etc. So the Gog prophecy is meant to be fulfilled at the approach of what is called the end of days, but not necessarily the end of the world. Jewish eschatology viewed Gog and Magog as enemies to be defeated by the Messiah, which will usher in the age of the Messiah. And the age of the Messiah, it's known as being the Aquarian age. So one view within Christianity is more starkly apocalyptic, making Gog and Magog allies of Satan against God at the end of the millennium, which are living right now, the end of the millennium, as described in the book of Revelation. So, a legend was attached to Gog and Magog by the time of the Roman period, that the gates of Alexander were erected by Alexander the Great to repel the tribes. Romanized Jewish historian Josephus knew them as the nation descended from Magog and the Japhethite, as in Genesis, and explained them to be the Scythians. In the hands of early Christian writers, they became apocalyptic hordes. Throughout the Middle Ages, they were variously identified as the Vikings, Huns, Khazars, Mongols, or other nomads, or even the 10 lost tribes of Israel. So the legend of Gog and Magog and the gates were also interpolated into the Alexander romances. According to one interpretation, Goths and Magothi are the kings of the unclean nations, whom Alexander drove through a mountain pass and prevented from crossing his new wall. Gog and Magog are said to engage in human cannibalism in the romances and derived literature. They have also been depicted on medieval cosmological maps or mappamundi, and sometimes alongside Alexander's wall. So the conflation of Gog and Magog with the legend of Alexander and the Iron Gate was disseminated, I'm sorry, that's a hard word, throughout the Near East in the early centuries of the Christian and Islamic era. They appear in the Quran in chapter Al-Kahf as Ya'juj and Ma'juj, primitive and immortal tribes that were separated and buried off. Du al-Qura'in means he of the two horns, who is mentioned in the Quran as a great righteous ruler and conqueror. Some Muslim historians and biographers contemporaries with the Viking regarded them as the merge of Gog and Magog. So this is basically what Gog and Magog stands for, and if we talk about prophecies of all kinds, we can review also that, for instance, the 9/11 event was also written in a Hebrew prophecy, actually, as well as the recent planetary alignment or the planet dance that we all experienced a couple months ago, right? Some prophecies are beautiful and some other are wholesome, harsh aspects. But all these prophecies are encrypted, as I mentioned before, and the deep study of the Kabbalah reveal these two prophecies, as I mentioned during two important readings called the Parasha in Hebrew language. So the 9/11 was a breaking point for the loss of freedom and privacy worldwide initially, since the very moment of the 9/11, the world started vibrating very low in chaos. So that resembles the Kali Yuga cycle that now we're gonna explain. And everything holds a deep relation. It's like all roads lead to Rome, so to speak. So these very low vibration, for fear and for their security and their safety, and the reason why these breaking points start, it was very easy for the governments to take over the personal privacy, starting from the airport security after that event. We all were witnesses and experienced little by little the loss of privacy and freedom in many different levels, taking for excuse our safety and security. So historically, there has been a number of 23 prophets that had revealed in their ancient scriptures that we are currently living the end of times. As it says, the arrival of the Messiah and the end of the world as we know it, the end of times. And these prophecies are ancient, and they know back then, way ahead of time, that this was going to happen. So how they knew it, right? Well, if we think too much about it, we'll think about that everything is written in stone and we live into a master matrix, right? It's madness, but it's happening. So, by the way, those who love the film The Matrix, it was made by two Jewish Kabbalah scholars. It was based in the Kabbalah scriptures extracted from the study of the Zohar and Yetzirah and more other books, Hebrew books, and they were unencrypted. Remember, all the scriptures are encrypted. The Zohar itself holds a lot of information, and the study of the Zohar, it's the Kabbalah. So the Matrix plot, it's an animation, basically, of the actual ancient Hebrew scriptures. And when we talk about ancient scriptures, as it is in this case, extracted from the Torah, we must acknowledge that the Torah, as many other ancient scriptures, were written in code, meaning they are encrypted in its own language. So the Kabbalah is the fourth and the higher level of study and understanding, not just a study, but the understanding of all the encrypted messages in the manual of the living, named Thorah, or Bible for the Greeks. It means that when we reach this higher level of knowing and understanding, we are awakening out of the matrix. In other words, the matrix simply means the society itself, the patriarchy. And the patriarchy is ruled by men in higher ranks into the society that we all live in. So, let's see. How this started back in 2012 was the pivot point of the changing cycle, but it was a buffer. And cycles do not end on a dime, right? They have a time lapse to unwind back and forth in the lapse of 26 years total. So 18 years back and 18 years forth. And if so, We're living now the unwinding points of this last cycle of chaos until 2030, which is the astrological given time for this cycle to end, actually. We astrologers know that by the time we reach the peak of entering, or the first months of the 2030, we're going to start seeing or experiencing the true change in the world. So right now we are leaving that gap, unwinding chaotic energy. And so a lot of things still happening and gonna keep happening. So giving time for this cycle to end, right? So for the new cycle to start, and if you are into astrology, how you have heard many astrologers talking about this long period in years of change. And the 2030, it's an approximately time. So we always drag back and forth some energy from the past year. Sometimes it's like 3 months, sometimes it's 6 months, it depends. It's like with the eclipses. So when it's estimated that for the most of the population worldwide will be evenly ready, vibrating in a higher frequency of unicity and universal love, what in other terms is known as we are one, meaning the only religion that will prevail will be the universal love, not distinguishing Christianity from Judaism, Islam. All the isms gonna die, and that's another prophecy. So, by the way, all isms gonna die. Islam, Catholicism, Christianism, Buddhism, etc. They're gonna perish, and it's written in a prophecy also in the Zohar, in the Torah, extracted from the Zohar. And yeah, so anyways, vibrating higher frequency of unicity and universal love will be the new religion, actually, and the mind and body connection, which is a higher sense of self in a spiritual way. And we explore as well in medical terms. This is happening in different ways, how the actual medicine is evolving, integrating the emotional side of the human nature to its somatizations or illnesses. We can also see the invisible force of the universe. It's working into the medical field, and which is truly important, because if we go back in time, ancient times, there were no such a thing as hospitals and no such a thing as churches. There were temples, and temples were used only for people that feel ill. But then the illness was extremely superficial, meaning only on top of the skin, not even in the flesh of the body. And they go to these temples for 40 days. The lockdown we had for 40 days, which in Spanish is called cuarentena, which means 40 days, cuarenta. And they used to stay there for 40 days to heal their bodies, but it was a temple. It was not a church, and it was not a hospital. It was called the temple. So we are going back to that level of consciousness, where our body is going to start healing inside out if we attain this higher level of consciousness, which is a bit that we are able to manage our emotions. And when we can manage our emotions, we can avoid damaging our biology. So I always tell my patients and students that we are a source of energy, inhabiting this flesh and blood vehicle, and we must take care of both evenly. Energy is invisible, and we all have a Wi-Fi signal, right? But we cannot see it, but we know it's there. Well, the energy that we carry in ourselves is also perceived by other beings, either positively if we are happy or vibrating high, or negatively if we are vibrating low, let's say sad or angry, for example. So just because we cannot see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So Jean-Exupéry said in his famous book, The Little Prince, that the most important things in life are those that we cannot see. And I cannot agree more. So, anyways, from the biblical perspective of from ancient the Thorah scriptures, we are living the end of times to enter into a new age of higher vibrations, not only for humans, but for every living being, including Gaia, the earth itself. This is the third world war, actually, and it's between our ideas, intellect, and what we know as religion. For those who are followers of any religion blindly, will be very difficult this transition, since the religious programming is for fact the most rooted one in their old beliefs. Ergo, the mind and body of these individuals will reject the change. They will reject also the new information, as well as people that have a strong Saturnian in their natal charts. If we talk about astrology, we're gonna have a, or they're gonna have a hard time accepting any type of change of what is known as familiar or comfort zone. Here enters NLP. So neuro-linguistic programming as a great tool of praxis to overpass this state of denial to these individuals, as it is for anybody who aim to attain a higher level of awakening of unconsciousness. And we talk about awakening in the is the wake of the full potential of the mind, actually. So why I say this? Because we must understand that the Aquarian age is purely mindset versus the Pisces age was religion rising higher because it was purely water, Pisces. And then water metaphysically represents emotions. So the Pisces era were extremely emotional with religion, carried with religion beliefs and passion and all that. So then we transit the Taurus era, which is purely earth. Taurus is earth, and that was the age for rising for the social economy and material wealth and possessions, and we were the head of the compulsive buying society, right? So we can review on and on every age or era at its peaks and downs to understand that what we resist the most will turn into a long painful state of mind and body, right? So now the Zohar also says that when the Torah mentions Israel, it's talking about a specific type of soul called Israel. It's the soul called Israel. It's not the land. Thus, Israel is not the nation nor a land. It's a type of soul. So we have to understand that, okay? And Amalek, known as Safek, which is the rooted word for Daoist in Hebrew, resembles chaos, and that's also intrinsically related to Egypt, Sinai specifically. So if we go back to history, we're going to see that Egypt represents an empty land, meaning that there's nothing for us to gather, nor pick up energetically wise. Please pay attention to this. I'm not saying the land of Egypt is ugly or bad. It's just energy for free us from something, or grasping a new vibration, a higher vibration for our souls. And that's another point because I can explain that after this. So the land, historically, the land of Egypt was actually a slavery land, and we left Egypt. So the land was depleted of positive energy way back in time. Now, to explain that part that I said, to pick up a new vibration or a new piece of soul, it says the Zohar, extracted from the Torah, it says that sometimes we have the need, the urge, or the likeness of traveling somewhere, specifically to one place for years. It's in our head. It's because our soul wants to go there to pick up a new piece of soul, because we are made from small pieces of light, and that's when our soul gets bigger and we grow. So the personal growth, it's internal. It could be external in a material way, but when we say personal growth, we're talking about in an internal way, and that has to do a lot with this pickup of new energy for our soul to grow. And it says in Egypt, there's not more energy to pick up in that sense of way. When I said that Egypt, it was a slavery land and it's depleted from energy. So now the Zohar also says that when the Torah mentions that this new age and the coming of the Messiah, it's related to these times that we are living now. And so if we look further into the now, the Aquarian age or era that we are already transiting, it's all about the element of air ruling the mind, the thoughts, the intellect. And metaphysically, it's the element of air. It's all about the head. So what it grows in our mind, in our thoughts, our ideas, our intellect, the way we think. So it's changing paradigms, and it's changing the way we perceive things too. So it makes sense that Gog and Magog is related to the war of the intellect, actually. It says in the Hebrew scriptures that Gog and Magog, it's the war, but it's in the intellect, because we see that between people, that we have different ideas, and people are getting battles about the way they see the world, and the way they want to do things, the way they think. And we can see it in political, on TV, right? And the things that are happening right now and have been happening for a long time, but now it's getting to a peak. And the following year is going to be harder. So until we reach these 2030 that start going to getting very light, as it says in the scriptures and the studies of astrology. And also, so it's just that the Aquarian age, it's a modern way of saying now that this was the battle of good and evil, right? If we put it in the ways of an ancient prophecy, Gog and Magog is the battle of the good and evil, the thoughts between people. So also, if we study numerology, we can see that as well in gematry. Gematry is Hebrew gematry, the study of the numbers. Numerology is a sub-level of gematry, but it has a lot of relation. If I code this for you, we will see that the actual numbers for this current year reveals that we are living the end of the cycle, which is the year 2025. It's number 9, the end of cycles, the ending of terms. And in the Hebrew calendar, we're currently in the year 5785, 5785, which it's the number 7, which is the intellect. So we are living the end of the intellect, the way we used to think. And the Hebrew calendar changes this year on September 22nd, by the way, September 22nd, 2025, because when we do celebrate Rosh Hashanah, the year change, and the Hebrew year, it's calendar, It's ruled by the moon cycle. So the ending of the year is not perpetual. Every year changes. And so, and the Kali Yuga began on the 5,125 years ago, which is the cycle of these 2,500 years of cycles in the Hinduism and Vedic prophecies. And saying that we are in the 2025 actually is an illusion sometimes, I think, right? Because the planet is way older than that, for a fact, right? The planet ain't that young. Another revelation says that a lot of people would perish simply because they're not ready to transit the change of times, and some others will have a hard time to do it. And I think that the ones that gonna have a hard time to do it is because they live in this familiar comfort zone and denial, that Saturnian way, that they don't want to change. They can accept the change, like I said before. So the most you resist, the more painful it gets. And the ones that pass away, like all the people that pass away during the pandemic, they were not ready to make this transit because things gonna be harder. And when we see death as I see that in a different way. It's the transcendence of the body, the soul, actually. So I don't think they are just disappearing. The people still among us, or the energy, their souls of all the people that pass, and they're still with us, but in a different, higher level of transcendence. They have finished what they came to do in their mission, if you can say it that way, during this life, and they transcend the body. So, however, only those who fully awake will cherish the new times ahead, like living in paradise, it says also in the ancient scriptures of the prophecy. And that set holds a tremendous relation with the known phrase, the return of the Messiah, where in ancient scriptures is related to living in paradise. So another prophecy states that only when the whole human race vibrates at its higher level, this world will transcend matter. For that, millions of years ahead must take place still, I'm thinking. However, if we elevate ourselves to a higher level of consciousness, we might be able to experience life as a personal paradise, right? In our own terms. So it's basically creating a new surrounding environment that resonates much higher with our current vibrations. And that is what's happening to many individuals that are in the process of personal growth and evolution in their lives, moving to greener places, maybe more tranquil places, some to secluded places of grid as well. The point in that is that whatever place or environment resonates with you, that resembles your level of personal growth. So the more chaotic is the place that you live in and resonate with, that you are, happy with it. That's the level of emotional, spiritual that you are inside. So, and we are not talking about work when we say personal growth. We're talking about spiritual growth, mind-body connection, to be in total coherence with our emotional side as well as our biological side. Our mind plays in a more serene state, far from any chaotic force, right? Because the mind rules everything. So if your biology rules your mind, you're doomed. If your emotions rule your mind, you're doomed. You have to control your PC, your brain, your machinery, which is up on the top of your head, and with that change of mindset, control your emotions. Otherwise, well, we all could be serial killers, right? So, higher intelligence and emotional intelligence, it's important. So, let's say that for those who read the book of Marilyn Ferguson, speaking of which, The Aquarian Conspiracy, know that all the econo-social transformations that we all have been experiencing since the 9/11 actually were part of a prophecy of the new age of Aquarius. Marilyn Ferguson's term for a conscious effort by New Age humanists to win cultural dominance over secularism and traditional religion. The Aquarian conspiracy also represents a radical transformation in human consciousness. If you haven't read the book, I recommend it to you. It challenges traditional Western thought and emphasizes holism, interconnectedness, and the potential for personal and social transformation, the rational modes of thinking, which is happening, and for most belief in the transformative power of consciousness above all, with the recognition of the interconnectedness of all things as one. Like Einstein said, energy equals matter. So we are one, actually. You know, Newton says no, but then Einstein came and said energy equals matter. So the Aquarian conspiracy is basically a breathtaking, compelling study of the changes that are currently taking place in work, relationships, medicine, religion, education, etc. So this is a book must read, as well as I always recommend to read Emotional Intelligence by Goleman. So that will be it, guys. And I wish you all like this and you understand what we are transiting right now, the forces, the invisible forces that are happening in the world everywhere, with the natural forces and social, cultural, economic forces, that everything is perfect in the way it's happening, although it's chaotic. It's the way it has to happen for the awakening. It says that only if we hit the ground, we wake up. So not everybody gonna wake up, and those are the ones that gonna have it a bit harder. It's not impossible, but they have to be willing to change the zoning. As my father used to say, the thought, the way we think, the ideas. So, and that's it. So I wish you all the best. Big hug for you all. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.